Welcome to Generation Movie. On this April 19th, we're going to review some movies today for you as you get ready for the movie-going weekend. And as a bonus, we get this guy, Rich Dries, joining us. Bringing
Good weekend for movies.
You know what? It's an eclectic weekend for movies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always a good weekend for movies when you have a bunch of movies out there. I mean, it's nice when you have one movie out there that everybody's talking about, but it's also nice when you have a bunch of movies out there that anybody can go to a Cineplex, a multiplex, whatever kind of plex you have, and find a movie that you can, I don't know, sink your teeth into, I guess is the way.
And
is a good way to start.
All are fairly original ideas. One might be from a book that we're going to get to. One was started off life as a remake of an old horror film that has now totally that idea. And other things. It's a kind of a superhero comedy, but all original characters and stuff. So if you're constantly complaining about big budget tentpole films that are based on big pre-existing IP, shut your face and get to the movies this weekend, because none of that is there. There's all sorts of great news.
And that's the other interesting
and need your love and support.
That's the other interesting thing about this weekend is they're pretty good. Like, they're good genre movies. They're well done, well executed, pretty fun genre movies, right? I mean, the first one we have to talk about is the one that's gonna have the biggest weekend, just because horror movies are easy. It's the after weekends that are hard for horror films. But Abigail is this gruesome, wonderful little I want to say it's a fusion of Fright Night and The Usual Suspects.
That's kind of fair. I was thinking about this as the movie was unraveling, not in a bad way, just as it was unspooling in front of me, as it was going on. I was like, this is kind of a half of a horror movie, half of an action movie. You could almost call it like Die Hard with a vampire if you wanted to.
Yeah. I was thinking Usual Suspects though, because I think Usual Suspects is the better because there's an underworld component to the movie. And I think what works best, these radio silence guys, these gentlemen that are making interesting, fun movies, where they're just kind of like sometimes they're playing in other people's sandbox, right? Sometimes we get a Scream, and then we get Scream 6, and they're reasonably really good genre, brand, franchise entries. And then they make a movie like Ready or Not, right? Which is one of those movies in the last 5 or 10 years that you go to, and I put this as bluntly as possible, it knocks your junk in the dirt, right? It just knocks your junk in the dirt, and it's just wonderful and amazing, and the kind of thing where you go, you look up and you realize you're watching something, you're watching greatness, and that movie right there, Ready or Not, which, by the way, with this movie Abigail coming out, and they're kind of padding their box office strength. They were talking recently that there's going to be a sequel to Ready or Not. I don't know how you do it. I would imagine you get to the will, you get to reading the will, and there's some sort of game involved with chicanery.
But Ready or Not's an incredibly fun action film, and I highly recommend it.
A woman in peril until she's not in peril. There have been a couple of them. You're Next is another one that jumps to mind, where they're you think the women are in peril, but in reality, everybody else is in peril, and so. And that's what happens here. They kind of flip the turn. Like we see a basic beginnings of an underworld movie where everybody's kind of working together, functioning, doing their jobs. One's a hacker, one's a driver. It's Angus Cloud's last movie. He plays a kind of a stoned out, kind of weird driver slash, he's hitting on everything that moves, and he's high as a kite. And, he's a wheelman. Catherine Newton's also in it. She's been in the news for, she was in Freaky and a couple other movies, so she's in her, she's got her genre pedigree. And then the main protagonist is Melissa Barrera, who is kind of been served a bum deal with what happened, getting into a political realm where for whatever reason, she loses her Scream job, even though she's the main protagonist of Scream and everything. Like, so all kinds of weird shit. But she's playing a person who's brought along for her motherly tendencies of wanting to take care of the girl they're kidnapping. Of course, they get there, and the trailer's giving it away that they've, in fact, kidnapped a vampire ballerina. But I want to say this isn't a one trailer movie. Right there, no. You haven't really seen anything, and you haven't seen.
The trailer gives you a good idea of what the film is about. The first act is kind of the setup. The second act is the reveal that they kidnapped the vampire, which isn't much of a reveal unless you've missed all the trailers. And in that case, if you're watching this but missed the trailers and haven't seen the movie yet, whoops, sorry, spoilers. But there's a couple of things that happen in the third act that I wasn't expecting, and a few things I really appreciated, especially like kind of how things ended. I don't want to touch on it at all beyond the fact that I really liked what they did there.
It's a great movie.
I was not expecting it, but yeah. And this is, by the way, this is the movie I was mentioning was the started off life as a Dracula's Daughters. Remake, but they left that idea way in the dust.
Yeah, and not to give anything away, but like it has really good performances from Melissa Barrera as like the conflicted person in the crew. It has Dan Stevens, who's every time he shows up, I just get giddy.
And his character here is a complete pendulum swing from the character he was playing just a few weeks ago in Godzilla and Kong: New Empire.
Yeah, he's not great. But I think the thing about Radio Silence is they know what they're doing. They decide to make some rule changes to the vampire rules. They all work. Everything they do really works. There's enough gore for the gorehounds. It's pretty tense. It's well plotted.
It's tense, but it doesn't have a lot of jump scares, and I appreciate that. Any of the tension that comes in this movie is because you spend a little bit of time with this crew of kidnappers getting to know the characters. And with, I would say, one real exception, you don't want any of them to really die. So and
I'd say two. I actually give it a high marks for that. There's at least 3 of them that I don't absolutely hate. Within the kidnap, there's a gentle giant. He's kind of like, my job is to slam things. but they do a really good job. And the writing by Guy Busick. He's written the Scream movies. He's written Ready or Not. Everything is going really well, and they're an up and coming bunch. They make exciting, fun movies that are, the horror is really good. It gives you a lot of hints of where it's headed. Set design is nice. Everything about it kind of, again, enough gore for the gore hounds. I would argue probably more than I was expecting, to be honest. But it's one of those movies where I came out with a smile on my face. I was like, yeah, I got exactly what I was promised, and a little bit more. And then, some of the reveals towards the end are really good. They're fun reveals, and it kind of turns the tables on what you think you're watching, which, when you get that in a horror film, you have to embrace it. And also, it's original. So if you don't want Halloween 17, or you don't want, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't want those things, we have to embrace these movies at the box office. and that's, that is another thing out of it. Barrera's really good in the lead role.
Yeah, I wanted to.
I really like the Radio Silence guys.
I want to also call out, in a positive way, of course, the child actor, the younger actor who is playing our
Abigail.
title vampire here, Alicia Weir. She's fantastic. The script requires her to do some decent acting for in a couple of different ways. Again, I don't want to kind of get too much into it because that would spoil things. But she has a pretty good career going for her too. If you're lucky enough to have Wicked Little Letters showing in your cineplexes, also
she's in a lot of things right now.
She's in Matilda the musical version of Matilda.
She's really good now.
Last year or 2 years ago now, whenever it was.
On Netflix.
I'm excited to see what kind of she's gonna be doing next, because
she's got a lot of range, and there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie. Another, like I said, the other side of it is the cold version of it, where it's just it's a men on a mission thing. It's another mission movie. And I think if you go to it and you enjoy it, there is a nice tinge of The Usual Suspects walking around within it. And like I said, it's a fun movie. Horror can be so fun when it's done properly. As I'm thinking about it now, even there's like an echo of Reservoir Dogs, in that people don't know each other. The crew doesn't know each other, so there's that kind of a tension going on. They're all using assumed names. Somebody is trying to play them off of each other. So there's a lot of different fun things going on. It's got a crime DNA running through it, but it's also, because again, not giving anything away, they're kidnapping somebody. So, excuse me, I'm a little under the weather, so bear with me.
You okay, brother?
Yeah, I'm a little coffee today. Okay.
We'll try to keep it shorter than the usual.
Yeah, well,
hour.
we're working through. I wore my Nazi shirt, my Nazi killer shirt, because it's my favorite Nazi killer shirt. Because up until like 2 years ago, we're supposed to be all pro kill Nazi, but somehow we've changed. But it's good to know that Guy Ritchie hasn't. Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Henry Cavill, looking very devilish in his his beard and hair all musk. Alan Ritchson, everybody knows from Reacher, and a really good cast of Alex Pettyfer there. A really good cast of Nazi killers, and this movie is a genre movie. It's a movie that we don't get a lot of. It's a men on a mission movie, and it's a lot of fun.
This is a throwback movie. I mean, I saw this about a week and a half ago now at a press screening, and I kind of walked out of it like, wow, this was really fun. It's directed by Guy Ritchie, but it doesn't use any of his real, traditional visual flair and visual trademarks of speed ramping, fast zooms, freeze frames, things like that. It's directed much more like a 60s or 70s World War II film. Like Guns of Navarone, Ice Station Zebra, the Dirty Dozen, those kind of films.
Bridge on the River Kwai. It looks and feels like an old timey World War II movie,
right down to the fact that a lot of the violence is bloodless. There's not a lot. As opposed to Abigail, there's not a whole lot of blood you actually see in this movie.
Yeah, I would imagine the amount of blood that's in the amount of blood in Abigail would be equal.
Yeah,
there's a lot of death in Ungentlemanly Warfare, and like I said, the part of my
you
love
can take a younger movie to see this.
Yeah, part of my love for the movie is that it is bloodless, and it is like very throwbacky, and it is, based on a great story, and the performances are just enough. Cavill cackling at Nazi soldiers, Alan Ritchson kind of playing an effeminate Swede. It's a real it is a real interesting, fun throwback movie that understands what it's trying to do.
Yes, and what's really great is it's based on an actual story, the actual birth of basically British Secret Service as it was kind of started to be put together during World War II, including a certain person back at the Admiralty by the name of Ian Fleming. So you're kind of watching almost the secret origin of the James Bond literary franchise, because Fleming ultimately goes on to base one of
base James Bond on Guy, on the Henry Cavill,
one of these guys here. Yeah, and
I think it has to be talked about that Cavill in his last two movies has swum around James Bond. We had Argyle a few months ago. We have this now. It's an interesting place. Like, if he was throwing the scent off, like that maybe he had been offered the role or whatever, this would be a great way, because he's kind of getting it out of his system, right? He plays secret agent in Argyle. He plays, a British officer here that kind of like makes up his own rules and his own team and whatever. But it plays like a man on a mission movie. My only concern in this movie is there's really not, except for the Nazi commandant, there isn't anybody smart enough to put anything in front of them. There's nobody, the plan kind of just, everything that changes along the way, there's no tension. That would be my own.
Yeah, there's stakes, but there's no tension. I will agree with you there. They're good guys, and they are heroic, and they're going to win, and
every Nazi they come across gets shot in the face in a funny way, and so it takes away a little bit of the tension. But the only real tension in the movie is the commandant with the actor's character, and he's almost like from a different movie. Like he's so not Nazi that we're traditionally used to seeing. Like, he has a beat chamber where he hangs out with other Nazis beating people, and it's kind of in a weird, cruel, fetish, sexual way. So it's like,
oh yeah, it definitely
there is a he's like from a different movie, and that's my only thing is, like, part of me watching the movie is like every enemy behind enemy lines movie should be this easy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. You're watching you watch Dirty Dozen. Most of the Dirty Dozen don't make it back. You know what I mean? Although the true life people they're based on, they did have several missions. Like all of them.
They did survive. So it depends how much fidelity you want
Yeah.
to history, because yes, they did all survive this mission. So
And
again,
also they not only did they survive, but they went on to several missions, including the one jokey one. They do like a lineup of the real guys, and their accomplishments after the movie. And the one is, the one guy got so many medals that Charles VI, I think, says, "You again?" Like, So these are really heroic guys. They're not necessarily the best guys, but they're the right guys for the job.
My favorite part of that reveal at the end with the cards of, this is the real person and this is what else they did during the war, is no Michael or Guy Ritchie did not give one wet rat's fart about making sure any of his actors looked like their historical personages.
No, they're not even close.
Because, you get somebody really super jacked like Henry Cavill, and then at the end they show the real guy, and he's like, 145 pounds or whatever.
Well, and then, I mean, the Richin character, I would have been far more scared of an Anders character that looked like the real guy. The real guy looked like, some guy you would see buying milk.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. Richin is so jacked during this movie. Like, the idea that we don't have him in 10 action films right now, off a Reacher, like, because there is just something about him when he is swinging an axe at people. And he is, that is one of the throwback things. He is the character that doesn't like to use guns. I mean, he uses them, but he doesn't like to use guns.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so throwback. That's so, James Coburn and Magnificent Seven using the knife, and you know what I mean? Like, it's so throwbacky to a 60s movie where somebody has a kitsch as a character, and he's just, there's a sequence on a boat where it's absolutely like, how does Alan Ritchson not have an action movie franchise yet? I mean, I know Reacher's big, but I just feel like this guy is, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't be, I'm not going to lie to you, Rich, I wouldn't be mad if they made him Batman. I'm not going to lie. I would love to see him in the cowl, just kind of throwing people around like they were junk.
Yeah, but I wouldn't buy him as Bruce Wayne. I mean, acting wise, charming, yes, but just his sheer bulk, I wouldn't buy as Bruce Wayne, because everybody would look at Bruce Wayne and immediately go, "Oh fuck, this guy's Batman, isn't he?"
Holy shit! You guys have similar builds.
Yeah, one other Bond connection. I don't know if you caught it. Did you realize he was playing Winston Churchill?
Yeah, the M, when he calls him M.
No. Who was playing Winston Churchill?
Oh, you know what? Can I tell you? I'm a little bit sick. So when I was at the theater yesterday, I was like, the only thing I wanted to see was the cast list, and I was watching the credits and I missed the cast list.
Okay.
So, Rich, you're gonna have to tell me.
Okay, it's Rory Kinnear, who plays Bill Tanner in the Daniel Craig Bond films.
Oh, that's nice. He was a really good Churchill.
Bond connection.
The Bond connection in the movie is really nice. It's a fun little movie. I like some of the swerves. I like where they're headed. I like, that everything is resolved. That would be my only thing, is that with the opposite, it's the opposite of Abigail. I think the tension in Abigail is perfectly justified. Goes all over the place. The only thing here is I wasn't worried that they weren't going to complete them. The only one I was worried about was the girl, because that Nazi commandant was just, he scared the shit out of me, and he doesn't really like. He kind of gets a popcorn fart of a death. You know what I mean? Like, it just happens. It's like that.
Yeah.
I kind of want him to be like thrown into a machine plate, like styly, into a plane propeller, something fun. But it's not Inglourious Bastards. It's more, again, it's if my dad were alive, or if it was like your dad, like a dad or an uncle, it's a perfect dad or uncle movie. So
yeah, I was like, is dad movie a thing? Because I know we have like yacht rock to classify 70s rock now and stuff like that. That
it is a
older
perfect
guy.
dad movie.
Yeah,
They
but
will
if
they will
category called
recognize Reacher, and they will also be like, I think I know who the British guy is, and everything will be fine. And then the Bond things will come up, and they'll be super excited if they like Bond. Um,
mm-hmm.
And it's a
If
fun
my
movie.
dad didn't have Alzheimer's, I'd take him to this movie.
I'm so sorry.
Which
Yeah,
I mean, it is what it is, unfortunately. But this I could see
hey, that's hard.
really
That's
enjoying
hard
this type
shit,
of movie.
Rich.
So
Yeah, but no, but I didn't mean it like that. I mean, if my dad was still around, like it was more.
yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that.
no.
I
I'm
think it's
not
a
upset.
perfect dad or uncle
But it
movie
is
in
what
the
it is.
sense that
But
they will be reminded of a younger time when they would watch like Saturday afternoon matinees, and
mm-hmm.
that's the best thing I can say about it. Also, is that it does transport you with the just the whimsy of the mission and the whimsy of like Cavill's first introduction in the film is really fun, like really fun. Like he gets brought into an office and he keeps upgrading everything throughout the fucking moment. Like he has matches,
Mm-hmm.
takes the box of matches, he goes over to the next, takes the cigarette. It is it's a perfect introduction to the character, and Cavill is having a blast. I feel bad for Cavill that he may not get Bond. It may be the kind of thing where we get a Bond, and then maybe Cavill might end up becoming like Pierce Brosnan. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't get Bond at the moment, but he gets Bond down the road. You know what I mean? Like although it'll be hard for him, but it would be the kind of thing where it would be a Brosnan like Bond thing. You know what I
I
mean?
think Cavill's moment is past, and I think he thinks so too.
So now he's taking all the roles that because I think it's like a smorgasbord of roles that would be if somebody didn't get to play Bond. But the movie's good. Guy Ritchie, it's a good Guy Ritchie movie. He is a hit or miss director, but in this particular case, I think he loves the story enough that he cares so much about it that and also he's making a particular type of movie, a man on a mission, Saturday afternoon with your old man kind of movie, and that's the best way to describe it. Abigail is balls to the wall crazy horror film that with super creative people that are trying to change the genre they're in. It doesn't change the vampire genre, but like I said, I like some of the new rules there. You know what I mean? I like that they played around with some of the rules. With with vampires and their progeny.
Yeah.
Some
rules of popular culture are in play here, and some aren't.
Some are and some aren't. And there's a really great moment where like, what kind of vampires we deal with? Which is very kind of meta and fun, and I don't think they're sparkly. Funny stuff. And that's the other thing. You'll get a good laugh out of both movies. You'll get a chuckle. I enjoyed Alan Richson the most. Like I think I gravitate towards weird kitsch characters in Men on a Mission movies. I like James Coburn in The Magnificent Seven. He dies throwing the knife into the wood stump. You know what I mean? Like so, I've always been that kind of person. Couple comments. Hi, Joe Ridgely. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon, Joe. Hi, Jamie Hill. Hello. Thank you for joining us. You had one other movie. I did not see this movie. So what other movie do you have?
I also this afternoon was able to hop out and catch a small little indie superhero comedy called Villains Incorporated. The biggest stars in this are Colin Mockery and Jeff Davis, who you probably know from Whose Line Is It Anyways? The story revolves around three villain henchmen whose boss is killed, kind of in a weird circumstantial accident. And they decide that maybe it's time to up their game and just become supervillains themselves. They've been working towards a plan for several years now, trying to save up money, and they go about trying to get the rest of the money they need and get some superpowers of their own. And they kind of discover that there are certain things about the world of superheroes and supervillains that aren't what they seem to be. It's a lot of fun. It kind of has some interesting world building, like they mentioned the 28th Amendment to the Constitution guarantees the right for superheroes and supervillains to have superpowers. And that can't be, that part of it can't be just having a superpower can't be legislated against, which feels like a very smart undercutting of like the Sokovia Accords from the MCU and Civil War specifically.
We can't make decisions about anything. Can you imagine if people had superpowers? People would lose their.
I know. The politics would be absolutely bonkers.
We can't get an amendment to the Constitution. Get out of here.
Well, I would argue
that's amazing.
I would argue that this superpowers could possibly be covered under the Second Amendment. I don't know. That's something I've always kind of toyed in the back of my mind. Like, there's a story in there somewhere that I haven't quite cracked the nut on yet, but that's something I've always had kicking around since the original Civil War comics miniseries came out, 15 years ago or whenever it was. But
that is very nerdy of you, but okay.
But this is a generally amusing comedy. It's not a belly laugh every 3-minute comedy. There's a lot of the characters are fairly well drawn, and has some heart to it. I like that. It plays with some superhero conventions in interesting, fun ways. And if you're looking for something to do, on a matinee, there are worse ways you could spend, your $8 or whatever for a ticket. The beyond Colin Mockery, the other two main characters are, played by Mallory Everton and Jason Gray, who give really good performances. Bring some funny to it. They're nobody I've really ever heard, or seen anywhere else before. I was taking a long look through the through the IMDb page of, and looking at all these actors, and I'm like, I don't know these guys from anything, but hopefully. Oh yeah. I think it helps you keep you immersed in the world of the movie. Worst thing was, like, for Mallory Everton as the female of the group, Beatrix. Part of me was like, she feels a little Gillian Jacobs from Community. She just has a very similar look. And I have to say, well, maybe if this movie had another $1 million in its budget, they could have gotten her. I don't know, but she does a great job. So I don't want to kind of like sound like I'm downplaying, this is Wish Gillian Jacobs or anything like that. She does a great job all on her own. And
that's fine.
I had fun with it. I laughed out.
It seems like the kind of movie I will find at some point on streaming. Because again, I told you, it's not playing in my area. So
and if it's not playing in your area, keep an eye out for when it should. I would almost imagine it's going to pop up fairly quickly on streaming. This feels like
a lot of fun. Plays with the superhero genre a little bit. And like I said, so it's a throwback weekend with interesting movies and new movies that are out there, where people, if you're complaining every week that there's nothing new or whatever, Abigail is not derivative. It's a pretty original vampire tale. It's got parts from other genres. It's remarkably well done. Effects are great. They look like they spend a lot of money on the effects, and good performances throughout from actors that you'll recognize but not necessarily know, except for a couple. And these two guys. This Radio Silence team is just, I want to make sure we mention them. Matt Bettinelli Open and Tyler Gillett. They're working together. They get everything done. They have the same writers usually on their movies. They've been working with Universal and making genre movies, and they're having a blast. You know what I mean? And when filmmakers have a blast and they change things around, they move things around, they make it better for us. That's a good little fun horror film if you're a horror fan. Lots of blood, reasonably good story, and good acting. It's the most you can really ask for from a non-franchise genre movie. You know what I mean? And then you got Guy Ritchie kind of making a throwback. It's a military men on a mission throwback movie. Good script based on a book that was just discovered in 2016. All these things that Winston Churchill did behind the scenes to make World War II go a little bit better for England. And it's, got Henry Cavill kind of mugging it up and having a blast, and Alan Ritchson, who is destined for bigger and better things. He's gonna get an action franchise at some point. I don't know what it's gonna be, but it's gonna be him killing a lot of bad guys, Rich. I look forward to it. I like Reacher. I think Reacher's perfectly acceptable and fun stuff, but this is he's about to branch out and be bigger than anybody understands. Like, he just did Ordinary Angels. He's just somebody to watch. You know what I mean? That you got your eye on, think maybe bigger, better things. And then Villains Inc. If you're looking for like an offshoot kind of fun superhero comedy, we're at that stage of superhero films where we get a little bit of a little bit of satire here or there, just playing with the preambles and whatnot of what a superhero movie is and what a supervillain is and all those things. And you can't really go wrong with them. Whose Line Is It Anyway, folks? They're really smart. So stop bitching. Go to the movies. Find something to watch. And for God's sakes, don't say, "Oh, there's nothing original," because you have three. Like I said, they're derivative, but they're not unoriginal. That's the key to this weekend. And you got plenty of other movies still playing, but these are some movies that are going to make a little bit of money. Civil War still playing. Causing trouble and controversy and whatever. That's in its second weekend. So there's original movies out there. You just got to go down and hunt them out and find them. Rich, where can you find
Sunsets is also.
Oh yeah, that opened last night as well, but I couldn't get to it because I'm dealing with
Spy Family, which is an anime thing. The Long Game.
No idea. I have no idea what it is. The Spy
Sting
Family
is also out there. Yeah.
Yeah, Sting.
No, neither do I really, but yeah. So there's lots to see if you've already seen Ghostbusters, Godzilla, and Dune.
Yeah, and any of the other March releases that are hanging well through April. Rich, where can people find your stuff?
Okay, all of my writing can be found at filmbuffonline.com. We also have a Facebook page where we would give you alerts when new pieces go live, as well as some other like news alerts and little tidbits of this on this date in history, little fun posts like that. I also am on two other podcasts. One is called The Big Picture Podcast, which I do with my very best friend and co-host Natasha Bogutsky, who sometimes joins us on Monday nights on Generation Movie. Oddly enough, this week's episode, she is not joining me. She has been very busy and did not have time to record something over the last couple of weeks, but I wanted to get something out. So I had a little sit down with author Tom Shabula about his brand new book, James Bond and the 60s Spy Craze. And it's all about, we talk about 45 minutes or so about James Bond films, all the spy spoofs, other movies that did it fairly straightforward. We're just kind of riffing on James Bond. It was a fun conversation, and I hope to have that dropping on Monday. The other podcast that I do is with within my capacity as a member of the Philadelphia Film Critics Circle, and that's called The Film Scribes. We don't have a new one coming up anytime soon to watch out for, but just search all your favorite podcatchers and you can find us and you listen to some of the older episodes. They're always worth a listen. And finally, you can find me on the socials at Film Buff Rich on Twitter and Blue Sky.
Okay, so you can find me every Monday night with this guy talking about things. And this Monday night on Generation Movie Week, speaking of Bond stuff, we got License to Kill coming up on Monday, April 22nd at 10 p.m. Timothy Dalton's second and final turn as James Bond. And we have other Bonds coming up. We have World Is Not Enough coming up with Pierce Brosnan's third Bond. And then we have Daniel Craig's third Bond, a little movie called Skyfall, which I think is bound to become one of the all-time favorites. You can find me, JW the Movie Guy, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Blue Sky, on Threads, JW the Movie Guy. Anywhere you look, I'm at any one of those places. And I also do a little show aside from Generation Movie and our Bondathon that's going on right now called Loud and Nerdy on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. on the Indie Escape Network with my good friends Kyle and Jerry. We do fun stuff. We have, Twilight Zone Redux, and It Came From Jerry's Basement, which is a streaming movie segment we do. So join us on Tuesday nights, but thank you for joining us tonight. Go to the movies. Abigail's at the top of my list, but Ungentlemanly Warfare, again, if there's a gentleman in your life, an older gentleman you like to go to the movies with, it will be a throwback. You will enjoy it immensely. And It is a time in film history when killing Nazis was the right thing to do. Like,
I'm all for it.
I'm pro killing Nazis. Anyway, again, I wore this shirt last night going, I'm wearing my favorite Nazi hunter of all time. So I know there's the Bear Jew, but I'm pro Indiana Jones. Thank you for joining us tonight. Go watch a movie, Abigail, Ungentlemanly Warfare, all fun.